Marcus Seuss, thank you so much for joining us for another Machine Heads interview today. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
Good, good. So, Marcus, you are the COO at Firstgreen Industries. And before we get into kind of like our actual discussion here, for those that are unfamiliar with Firstgreen, tell us about the company. Give us like a brief introduction to the company, what you guys are all about.
Great. Yeah. So first of all, thank you. We really appreciate the opportunity to be here
Yeah.
and letting people know about who we are and what we do. I'd let people know that First Green is, yes, we are a new company in this industry, but we are not a new company as far as age. We're almost 6 years old, so toddler in the industry. And we've been making machines since that day one. We've been making and innovating electric construction equipment for 6 years. Now, we make our equipment in Czech Republic, in Prague, out of all European components. And we've been in the US for a lot less time than that. And that's why maybe we're a little bit less known here. But we do have nearly 1,000 machines across the world in some of our first generation machines, serial numbers under 100, many of them still running and working, many of them doing work 24 hours a day. So that's what we do. We make very strong construction equipment that moves and lifts heavy things, but are all based on electric schematics. So that's who we are.
Awesome. Well, yeah, let's dive into kind of like from you guys' perspective at First Screen, kind of like the current market for compact electric construction equipment. You mentioned kind of moving into the U.S. The company's a little bit older than its time in the U.S. The amount of machines that are in the market today. How would you guys characterize demand right now for specifically electric construction, compact electric construction equipment? And where do you see that going in the next few years?
The reason this industry is very exciting is because this equipment, the demand is good, demand is strong, and we continue to increase market share because the scope of what these machines can do now has been much broader than in the past. The machines are stronger, more versatile. People are always creating new attachments and capabilities, and so that this gives the equipment, a lot more versatility in all kinds of markets. The fact that it's electric gives it added capabilities of being able to work in places that diesel is no longer either allowed or safe, right? Or allowed because it's maybe deemed unsafe in those areas. So the market's strong, and the machines are being applied across different market sectors all the time. Things that we find out about that are new and interesting even to us. So we feel like our future is just trending upwards, or the market in general for the compact equipment is strong.
Yeah, and what do you guys kind of see as like the customers right now that are kind of like best fit what you guys are delivering? Like what customers right now and in the next couple of years are going to benefit most from investing in a fully electric machine?
Customers, first off, who are looking after their own wallets and profitability, are going to gain probably the most benefits. Secondly, we talk about those who want to enter into new markets or gain share in different markets that were maybe crowded previously. The first thing about the markets or the costs and the profitability is where, in a very geopolitical world, some loose cannon on the other side of the world could send a missile across to another country and increase our fuel costs, 10, 15, 20% in the course of a few days. Uh, if you've already bid out a job and you're working and that fuel cost changes, that may really affect your profitability, may actually affect any profitability you are going to have there. So fuel costs are one thing that we like to say are unstable, right? The second thing is our maintenance is much less. So your uptime, if you own or are renting this equipment, you want it to run the entire time you have it. or at least most of the time you want to use it. So having a lot less moving parts is going to help you, help your bottom dollar immensely. And then if you're looking to enter new markets, there is a lot of places where electric equipment is doing pretty cool work now, where it was just man labor before doing that work. So those are the two things we look at for our customers, and those who would benefit.
Here in the U.S., can you give us an idea of kind of like the types of customers that you've seen kind of adopt Firstgreen equipment and how they're putting those machines into use in the field?
Yeah, we have a lot of demolition, construction, internal demo is a big deal. Agriculture, clean ag has become a big market for a lot of people, and then landscapers. The equipment is much quieter, much more accepted for communities that are, houses are a little bit closer together. So landscape market has also grown for us. Yeah.
Gotcha. So looking at kind of like we'll kind of rewind here and we'll talk a little bit less about the market and a little bit more about Firstgreen and kind of like we've talked about some of the opportunities that you guys have identified. But let's talk about maybe a little bit of the philosophy and why you guys feel like you've got the right ideas to address those opportunities. Why was the company started? And like I said, what kind of problems or holes in the market? Because other manufacturers are making compact, electric
Sure.
loaders. Why did Firstgreen want to throw its hat in the ring, and kind of what problems or holes in the current offering do you guys feel like you're uniquely suited to fill?
Right. So what we did was our company was always all electric. And that makes us a little bit unique because we didn't take it from a diesel or typical gas engine and try to convert our equipment to fit into an existing chassis or an idea. Our equipment was built from the ground up to be electric, and that gets us to think very differently about what the capabilities are for electric equipment. I think that's what makes us very, very unique when it comes to our company versus some of the others who are in this market. So when we endeavor to make equipment, we said, are we going to make it even hybrid? Is that even an idea? Because we understand that gas and diesel still plays a very, very important role in our world and our society. But we got past that by saying, look, the battery market, the battery technology is innovating so quickly that if our machines are not capable to do something today, next week, next month, next year, they may be very capable because of that innovation in battery technology. So that's what we do. That's what we've done from the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, if you look at the lineup that you guys have, just about every model except for you've got like a mini skid steer or you guys are calling it a compact electric track loader. So you guys have like a little track loader, a little stand-on machine, but everything else in the lineup, and we'll talk about kind of some of the more obvious design differences between like the CBL, the Rocket, and the Elise lines. But all of these machines are wheeled skid steers in a time where like the CTL has definitely kind of like the tracked machine has overtaken the skid steer in terms of overall market share. Why are you guys focused on skid steers? Why do you guys see that as kind of like the wheels instead of tracks? Why are you guys focusing on that right now?
And it's a really fair question. The track skid steer market is a much broader market, much bigger. We'd love to be involved in that. At the time of innovation, when we started with the skid steers, the tracks with the amount of surface area that they have drained our battery lives much too quick. Our goal is to get people through a workday, right? So if you can't do that, we don't want to be a part of it, right? And so the tracks were a big challenge in the beginning. And so we went straight to wheels. Okay. We know the track market's much bigger. Yes, we offer the over the wheel track system that pretty much anybody could get from us or other OEMs. But that was why we focused on wheeled. As far as skid steers, I always relate to those as like the Swiss Army knife of the industry. It's so adaptable. People have been making attachments that are innovative, really cool stuff for dozens of years, and that's why we're in that market because we believe that a skid steer can do a lot of different work, a lot of different types of work. But that being said, like I said before, battery capacity, battery technology is innovative, is come so far that a track skid steer should not be out of our future for very long. So.
Okay, yeah, and so can you give us an idea of kind of, and this is not, to your point, I've heard that from several other manufacturers as well in terms of why they either went with their first electric machine was a wheeled compact loader instead of one of the CTLs. I've heard that the battery drain is like significant enough to where if they did eventually, and some of them did eventually release kind of like an electric tracked version, but like the loss in battery life or the loss in kind of like runtime was significant.
Sure.
What for you guys like what have you seen in terms of like could you characterize that difference in terms of runtime in a track machine versus like the skid steers that you guys have available today?
So there is a comparable company to us that's running or has a prototype of a tracked skid, and it has a larger battery. It's about 3 times more expensive, but it has the same lifting capacity, same power hours our machine has. A larger battery, 3 times more expensive. It runs about 3 hours to their own verbiage. That's what they tell people. It's going to run 3 hours. They're trying to convince the market that people really are in and out of a skid steer working and don't need 8 hours, and that's probably true, right? People are in and out with electric equipment. There's no idle, so you can jump in and out. Well, our absolute minimum run times are 6 hours for our smallest batteries, and so you can see that makes a pretty significant difference. We say it's over 50% is that loss.
Yeah, and so I mean, and like you mentioned, if it's even greater if same size battery.
Right.
So
right.
even with the larger battery, even with the larger battery, they're
batteries,
getting half the runtime.
Half the runtime. That's how can we expect people to adapt electric equipment if they're not going to get some some significant runtime out of this stuff? It's people are feeling sometimes people are feeling pressure to go electric. I know that there's a lot of states that are mandating things. We certainly follow those things. We certainly track all that, but we are very rational in the way we think about this market. We know that this has to be the right equipment for the operators and for the job. If it's not, we don't want you to use it. We want you to use something that's going to work for you. We have told people, your job is clearing land when there's no temp power. Well, you don't want to drive a 10,000-pound skid steer back and forth at night to charge. You don't want to charge it with a generator. You can. What are we doing, right?
Right.
Your best equipment is one of the other options. Absolutely.
Okay.
That's what you should be buying. So we're rational in how we think about that. So we want to go the distance when we say our minimum, our smallest battery is 6 hours. If your job is going to be 2 hours in the skid steer moving dirt, moving or running a hammer, you're going to jump out. You're going to do a bunch of work for a half hour, 40 minutes, and then you're going to jump back in. You should get through the day. If you need longer than that, our batteries hot swap in 10 minutes. So if you need a secondary battery, you can hot swap a battery in about 10 minutes and get double the runtime. That's how some of the machines in other parts of the world are getting 24-hour a day runtime with us.
Okay, yeah. So the hot swap battery, that was something that I was not aware of. Could you tell us a little bit more? How does that process work?
It's as if you would change a battery in a flashlight. I know that's oversimplification, but you pull one wire with a pallet jack. If you're on flat ground, there's a little adapter we have on the pallet jack that will be able to jack the battery out, pull it out. Next, jack the next one in, close the door, plug it back, make the connection again, close the door, and continue to run. It's 10, 15 minutes. If you're on unstable ground, we suggest somebody uses maybe something with, another skid steer with forks or something to that effect. But yeah, it's a very simple process to pull the battery out, swap it, put a new one in. And our batteries are always charging in less time and less runtime than they could possibly be used.
Okay.
So,
And how big are the batteries themselves?
yeah, so thousands of pounds, right? 1,000 pounds for smaller lithium ones. Chargers are mostly either handheld, plug into two 110 outlets, no charging infrastructure required, or they're built in onto the battery. Again, if you're hot swapping, we're going to tell you, hey, let's not build in the charger. Let's give you the charging stand. This way you can have the other battery charging, of course. Just depends on what you want, but they can be charged on two 110 outlets. Even our biggest machines has to be separate, 20 amp circuits, but you can do it very easily, or you can do it into a 220, and that's going to get you 4 to 5 hour charge time.
Okay.
Of course, as quick charging as well, you need 400 amp power to the location, and that's a different charger, and that's going to be a hour and a half, hour and a half of charge to full. But that's one of the things people always ask about. What does charging infrastructure look like? But that's us. That's you can carry it in your hand. So
Okay.
we're very proud of that.
In terms of like, could you give us an idea of like for some of the I'm kind of interested in what that looks like. How do some of your customers manage that? So like, let's say there's some customers that are like, yeah, we want to definitely have the second battery to swap in, and maybe there's only certain jobs where they feel like they need that. How do they get the battery to the job site? Where is it until it's ready to like swap in? Like what does that look like?
Sure, it's easily fits in the back of an F-150
Okay.
or a trailer bed, right? They're not very they're um, we're talking about 3.5 feet long, something to that effect.
Okay.
So they get them that way to the job sites. But I will be honest that most people who are doing hot swapping, the battery and the machines are in the same location 99.9% of the time. So ports around the world. We have a few that do hot swapping, where they bring the machine over, pull the one battery out, put the other one in, and it goes off and does its job again. So not always talking about people who are bringing it on site. For those folks, we just recommend a larger battery. Yeah.
How
If
many
you
how
want
many
10
battery
hours,
options do you have?
yeah. So for our larger size skid steers, we have three different sizes, and ranging from 6 hours to over 10
Okay.
is our general principle on those. And then in our mini loader, we also have three options now. So that's new, but we have three options also in that. So
Yeah.
that one is the smallest option, gets you 8 to 10 hours easy.
Okay.
So yeah. So our least expensive option gets you 8 to 10 hours in the mini. We call it the mini Z. So
Yeah, I mean, and I would also assume like we were talking earlier about kind of the discrepancy in terms of runtime on the track machine versus the skid steer too. And I think you mentioned this, but you're using a hammer or anything that's going to like use some kind of considerable hydraulic flow. Obviously, that's going to eat into your runtime as well. This is actually kind of like having these different battery size options, having the hot swap option available. I would imagine that kind of alleviates any kind of concern, because I think that has become. I think we're in a spot now with the battery technology where we've figured out how to get 6 hours, 4 hours across the board, maybe except with the CTLs, 4 or 6 hours across the board, just about with whatever machine you're looking at that's electric. What we haven't quite figured out is like, usually the caveat is, but if you're going to be using a breaker or you're going to be using anything that's going to use some kind of considerable hydraulic flow or something like that, that's going to eat into your runtime. I this is actually I guess this is actually two parts because I didn't ask this before either. Are these fully electric in the sense that there's no hydraulics, or are they powered by the battery and then also have hydraulic power? What are the attachments powered?
Perfect question. So thank you for that because that's important. So we address that in two ways. We do have standard hydraulic pump over battery power, right? So
Okay.
fully battery operated. Now, some people say that's not all electric. Well, I mean it's run by a battery, so
Right. Right.
it is. The reason we have standard hydraulic, is because we don't believe that if you have a yard full of attachments, that you
Right.
need to go buy a whole new yard full of attachments. First of all, that's not sustainable for the world, right? For what we think is important, right? And some sustainability areas, that's silly. Some of these attachments are 20 years old and work perfectly fine because you can replace a hydraulic hose, or and hydraulics and hydraulic hoses have been, you can get them fixed and made anywhere now. So it's a proven technology. It's proven, and we like that. Secondly, we do know that hydraulics take a good portion, a little bit extra of energy. So to solve that, we actually do E attachments. So maybe you've got a 4-in-1 bucket. That doesn't need to be an E attachment. That's a simple hydraulic attachment. It's not going to take a lot of extra energy. We're going to use that. You can get it from us. You can get it from a lot of OEMs. We standard couplers and standard hydraulic connections. Okay, great. Use that 4-in-1 bucket that you've got sitting around for the last 5 years. But if you want a snowblower is going to take some extra energy that we don't want to give up. And so we solve that by actually making a snowblower with its own motor that connects directly to our battery. And this way we can control the power better, the energy loss much better. It's much more efficient to use the E attachments with really high flow, high energy consumption attachments.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like some of the similar benefits that you get from moving from like pilot controls to electro hydraulic controls, or just that ability to kind of, like you said, really manage and optimize that efficiency and the scheming and how the power is managed and all that good stuff, customization and stuff like that.
And getting into that, our drive motors and our hydraulic pump can be run at two different speeds. So if you're lifting dirt, pushing dirt, you don't need your hydraulic pump running at top speed. You can have it at its lowest speed, but you might want to scoot around quicker to get things done. So you can have your drive motors running high speed at the highest speeds. Basically, there's a minimum of 4 speeds for each operation. So you may have 4 speeds for hydraulic pump. You could even turn it off if you're just using a float feature to push. You can turn your hydraulic pump off. You don't need it, or you can, or you can have at speed 1 to 2, 3, 4 while you drive as well. If you need to be really precise, keep it at speed 1. You can do that. So that's
Okay.
how we try to help operators manage what they want to get out of the machine.
Yeah, and the second half of my question, and you're partly answering it with the bit about, especially like the snowblower thing. Like you guys are clearly thinking about kind of like, all right, how do we make sure that customers can get like the full use that they want out of these machines? And I think the snowblower solution is, you in that case you see why the fully I guess electric, like no hydraulics whatsoever, is being kind of explored. And like you said, it does mean that you have to replace all of your attachments if you're moving to a machine that does not have hydraulics. And so that means you have to depend on, like, well, does this manufacturer have all the attachments to replace my current attachments? Do I really want to spend millions of dollars potentially to kind of like replace all of the tools that I have? Not really, especially not right now. Maybe over time you start collecting these and but do you guys feel like with the standard hydraulics and then the hot swappable batteries and the 3 different battery size options that you guys are offering, has that done a pretty good job so far? And obviously there's work to be done, and again, the snowblower is a good example of that. Further innovation to be done, but has that alleviated for the most part anybody who might be concerned about, well, one of the things with the electric machines that I'm worried I can't run my tools for very long. Has that done a pretty good job of alleviating customer concern around that?
Yes and no. So
Okay.
we are in a pretty divided world, right? And
Yeah.
people either come walking up to us at a show with an idea of who we are and what we believe before even talking to us, and that sucks because as you can tell, I'm open to speaking with anybody. I believe in a lot of different things. I believe we're America and we can have everything, we can have electric equipment, we can have diesel equipment, we can have all the things that we have as options to do the best job we can do.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it has absolutely helped people to understand that batteries have come a long way. Battery technology. I usually tell people, do you have a corded drill? Some people say yes. I'm like, I do too. You know why? Because sometimes I need to go through concrete block, and my
Right.
electric just does not do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but 99% of the time, that stays in my
That's right.
tool chest,
Yeah.
and I take out a battery, and now I've got torque wrenches at my disposal that are stronger than air-powered torque wrenches,
Mm-hmm.
battery torques that are stronger than air torques, and that's amazing. We've come such a long way, and I just let people know things are changing. Nobody's forcing you to get on board, but just think about what's best for you, and if this equipment can do that, maybe what is best for you, for your wallet, maybe your health, if you don't want to be around certain environments, maybe this equipment can do that. So open up your mind to what these things can do, and at least keep an open mind about it because we want to have a conversation, and that's what's important to us.
Yeah.
And lastly, we're going to tell you, hey, this machine is not right for you. You're running a snowblower 18 hours a day, and the snow is still coming down. I think we're probably not the right solution.
Yeah.
So that's
No.
okay.
Yeah. I mean, because there are these situations where you mentioned kind of like the competitor that's trying to, that's saying, hey, look, people are in and out of these things all the time. It's like, well, sure, but sometimes no. Sometimes they're trying to get snow off a sidewalk for 24 hours straight or whatever. Especially with snow removal and stuff like that. And then like if you're a landscaping crew or you're a tree removal crew and like you're the guy in the machine that's moving the stuff out of the way as it's like constantly falling to the ground as like a tree is being taken down. Yeah, you're not in and out of that machine unless it's a one man or a two man crew. So yeah, these applications, it's and I think too like what's this kind of goes into my next question, but it is unfortunate, and I've kind of felt this way ever since I started in this industry as well 15 years ago. But it's like there's always been this kind of like innovation represents this like existential threat to doing not even doing business. I wouldn't even say that because like and you know this I'm sure too because if you talk to any of the guys that are like very successful, those are the guys that are like they've already some technology or some investment that they've made that changed the way they do business, got them into a new market, got them into an efficiency, like they saw like the ROI, and it's like it only has to happen one time, got them to their first 1 million or their first 5 million or maybe their first 10 million,
Yeah.
and then from then on out they're like, what's the next one? How do I get to 20? How do I get to 50 from there? And so it's usually the folks that it for some reason they're seeing as almost like this like a cultural or a political thing, and it's like it's just innovation, and it's just kind of like exploring the ways that we can make the job easier for you, and you can do that. You can skin that cat 100 different ways: pilot controls versus electro over hydraulic, or electric machines versus non-electric machines, or there's a ton of different ways to do it. But given all of that, and given kind of like the context you guys find yourselves in as a company dedicated to producing electric machines, I'm kind of interested in terms of like what the company's ambitions are in terms of scaling. You're competing with like just about everybody has got some kind of prototype, or they all have retrofitted in some kind of way, or worked with another small retrofit company to kind of get to a prototype stage, or they're showing stuff at trade shows like, look at this electric machine. So like given that context, given kind of some of the challenges that you guys are facing, and maybe even some of the current state of the technology, like how do you guys want to like even competing globally?
Yeah, so the other players in the market, much bigger than us, have shown prototypes for several years for some certain equipment, and are still not in production. We've experienced those gremlins in the first few years as well, and through engineering and innovation, we've overcome a lot of that, a lot of those hiccups. But in my mind, I believe the more electric equipment that comes out onto the market, just as it was with hand tools, the more people will find it more common, easier to experience, and in the end, easier to test. Right. So if there's more equipment out there, more things they can test and see, they're going to be interested to see why it might work for them or experience why it might work for them. And that's for us, we're happy that if there's other prototypes, it just encourages us that we're on the right track and we need to keep moving forward. The innovation that we oftentimes release will be also things that these newer prototypes from these other companies are looking at releasing as well. We've noticed that in press releases and other things. The more out there, the better, because it's going to make it more common. It's going to grow the market. And honestly, people will buy that $350,000 machine because it's from a certain name, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that, again, that's good. That's good. It's more electric equipment. We hope that they can achieve the things they want to with that piece of equipment, because we don't want them to continue the myth that these pieces of equipment are very short term. But we like that there's other innovators out there. I think it's good for the market, and it's in large part good for us. As far as scalability, our factory is an open door. We'd love to have people come visit, whether it's we do sales service and support out of Asheville, North Carolina here, also up in New York. We'd love to have people visit, but we'd love to have them see the machines built in Czech Republic as well, see the parts, see how we build this equipment, and we definitely enjoy people coming to visit wherever it might be. Again, it's very much an open book. I think that intimidates some of the companies that have been trying to innovate for so long, because we allow people in. So at every trade show, I will have every big company, their representatives come walking by, taking photos, having a conversation, only because I will come up to them and say, "Hey, nice to meet you. I appreciate you coming by. I don't care where you're from. If you want to talk about this stuff, I'm happy to talk. You don't have to hide photos. I'll open up. What do you want me to open up? I'll open it up and you can take a picture."
Right.
So, how do we do it? Well, we innovate quicker because we're very streamlined. We have a
Mm.
lot of streamlined communications directly with the CEOs and the head engineers of our company. And so we innovate really quickly.
And
We
you
had
guys don't
one
have the
example.
distraction, honestly, of diesel. You don't. You're not, like you mentioned earlier, the importance of the decision at the very beginning. Like, should we do diesel and electric? Should we have a hybrid machine? And I think that, like, saying, obviously one of the biggest things in business is knowing how to say no to the right things, right? And so, like, having that focus on electric machines is huge for you guys. You don't have to worry about how does this affect our not our diesel lineup, or how does this affect our hybrid lineup, or do we need to, should we try to like use the hybrid as kind of like a way in and then we switch them over to the electric? Like, no, you're just like, it's good enough now to like grab some market share, and then like you said, it's definitely not going anywhere. Like, it's here to stay, and it's only going to grow. The question is, like, who's gonna, like, you know become synonymous with the technology.
Right. And to your point, that the those early adapters, right? They come in, they're going to try it no matter what. That's great. We love them. They have good feedback. They're always, but the real portion of business gets done with those people who are using it to lower their costs and make make their margins grow. So with our equipment, you can, it's all free. We have this virtual garage. It's all free. You can see how much the machine is running, how much it's standing still. It's, all GPS controlled. You can see what the voltage spikes, if there's anything problems with motors, if they're running hot, if something's happening. We can fix that quicker before things go down, right? So we can address those more quickly in your virtual garage. Of course, if your machine runs away at night, we can turn it into a brick, and you can turn it into a brick, and you can find it. Uh, so all that stuff has been helpful for people to see, how they can use this machine to save money over using a diesel counterpart. Again, maybe they have a fleet of several different diesels and a few electric, and they want to know, how do we use the electric more? Well, we can help them with that virtual garage and what we can do there. So another innovative piece was our mini loader is all, it is you can stand behind it if you like, but we notice a lot of people are happy to take the remote control off and use it by remote control. And so that remote control became so precise and so useful that we implemented it into our largest size skid steer, which was only a cabin skid steer at that time. So we said, okay, what can it do in the skid steer? Well, let's figure you're inside the skid steer. We all know there's some employee problems at the moment trying to get people to work in certain jobs. So you don't have a spotter. You're trying to drill post holes with an auger. I can't see exactly where I want to drill it. I want to put it down. If I'm in a regular skid steer, I got to jump out, look, okay, jump back in and do it. With the remote control, you jump out, you can run the entire machine, auxiliaries, and all your hydraulics, everything from outside of the machine. You could drive it, move it, put your post holes in, move to the next one, post holes in, just by walking next to it. And all that innovation has, let's say you need to put rock down somewhere, gravel, and you want to put it as close to a home as possible because that's where you're going to essentially bring it or deliver it. Well, you can get outside the machine and put it as literally as close as you can see from outside of the machine, going 0.02 miles an hour because that's how precise the controls are, up to its full speed of almost 10. So obviously you don't want to do that close to a home, but
Right.
it is that precise, and so those things change the way uh, change can absolutely change your bottom line. So
Yeah. 100%. I mean, and I think too. So we've talked about the business. I want to get into some of the machines, and then we'll circle back around to kind of like you mentioned, just trying to get being super open to folks seeing these machines and trying them out and stuff like that. We'll get back to that in a little bit, but like let's talk about the machine lineup that you guys currently offer. So right now, between the CBL line, the Rocket line, the Elise line, and then you have the Mini Z. But right now, you guys are selling 9 different models. Of those 9 different models, all but one are skid steers, traditional skid steers. And then of those skid steers, 5 of the 8 skid steers don't have a cab. They're completely remote controlled machines or designed for remote control. Why is so much of this lineup no cab? I mean, and there's not a cab on it, so you can't. You buy this machine, you're buying it for remote control capabilities. If you want a machine that can do remote control and a cab, then you're looking at the Elise line, which is a 3 model lineup. The CBL and the Rocket line, no cab, fully remote control. Why the focus on remote control? Do you guys see that as kind of like a hand in hand benefit with an electric machine, and kind of like those two things are gonna, like, moving forward, like that's kind of like both of those boats are gonna rise on the same tide, essentially, the benefit of remote control with an electric machine?
Wayne, that's a great question. One of the main focuses of the remote control are one of the main ideas is safety. So if you can be safely working, lifting 3,000 pounds, there's a lot of value to that. So the different machines are In a lease, which is our standard skid steer, you jump in, you run the machine as a standard skid steer, and as well it has a remote option, you jump out. But like you said, the CBL, which is an Elise basically, an Elise without a cab, but the CBL and the Rocket lines will not have cabs. They serve two different purposes. One is for the hinge pin height to be a little higher, and that's the CBL. That's our standard Elise. But the Rocket line was developed very specifically for mining operations. They don't need to lift all that high, but they need low shoulders to get under belts, under sifters, whatever it might be. And that's why we had developed our Rocket line. Both are very much the same technology. Both will have CBL or the Rocket line is going to have we're going to have that camera systems. We'll have camera systems in it, and we're going that way. But the CBL is more line of sight still, so you're going to work it as if you're still around, but you don't have to be in a dangerous path. Whether you're on a hill doing work and you can run it from 5 feet back, or if you're using a tree cutter attachment to cut a tree and bring that down to fell a tree, you can do that. Uh, or if you run a recycling plant, people used to shovel underneath the belts to get all the material out from underneath the belts. And when you do that, you have to shut down the belt, right? You can't have stuff falling on people. Well, you don't want people in a cab either, so you still have to shut it down. But with a CBL, the cabinless design, you can still run that equipment, still run the operations while you're moving the material out from underneath the belt. And so those are some of the advantages. The Rocket line, I would say, is very much geared towards mining, and mining is coming back again. Mining's never completely gone away, but we know that there's a revolution in mining, and we're excited that that's going to be a standout machine in the mining world. Again, no fumes to worry about, no air exchange inside the mines. It's going to be a great system there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, looking at the CBL line, the Rocky, I mean, and that makes the Rocky name make a lot more sense. But like
Okay.
the CBL lineup in particular, the applications that where low profile is not necessarily as important, but they do need the hinge pin height and the extra reach that design gives it. What are some of the applications that you're seeing this cabinless CBL lineup go into right now?
Yeah, so certainly when um, uh, digging out, we've seen in digging out in sewer or waste environments, putting a single point harness on it and dropping it into there. We are using it in the concrete and aggregate world where they're dropping them into barges, very dusty environments, and those dusty environments are not good for diesel equipment, of course, right? You need air intake. Um, so we're using them there, and of course the remote plays a big role there. But yet you're in a barge, and do you want somebody down in there with other aggregates? So the safety part of the CBL lineup is what really seems to be key when it comes to more dangerous environments. That's where it seems to be used more often.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier kind of like there's these come standard obviously with like a remote control pack, and I think you mentioned earlier like you guys are exploring the possibility of kind of like a completely remote kind of workstation type thing where maybe you're in the office and you're in front of like a how far away are you guys from that, or is that something you already offer? What's your thoughts on doing like
Oh
completely
yeah,
off-site work?
the future is wild, right? Teleoperation is in development. We believe maybe first quarter of next year we'll be able to release it already.
Okay, wow.
This way, somebody can run, you can set waypoints up for a machine to run to go over to a gravel pile. You can take over operation of that through your computer sitting there with your joysticks. Grab the gravel you need, say go on your way by having it follow the waypoints back where it may need to dump, but it's not going to dump in the same place all the time. So you want to take control of that at the end. In the meantime, you've got another machine on its way to that initial gravel pile, and now you're working two machines with one operator. So teleoperation is certainly on the way. It's going to be great in the mining environment as well. Really excited about that.
And let's talk a little bit about the Elise lineup too, because these are electric, battery powered, but for the most part, they're your kind of typical. You get inside and you operate it. Now, now you did say it does have the option of being remotely controlled still, though, right? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah,
So
you can still jump out. Yeah.
take us through this Elise lineup. One of the things that I noticed too, just kind of looking at these guys, is the flat front glass looks really nice. It looks like you've got a lot of visibility down to the bucket from both the front and then kind of like looking out the sides of the glass as well. It looks like there's quite a bit of visibility there. You guys have kind of taken pains to. It looks kind of like a integrated kind of glass kind of like window there with some light protection on it. But yeah, it looks like visibility was like a really big thing here. So if you are going to be inside one of these machines, you guys were taking the extra steps to make sure that you're actually able to see. So yeah, take us through kind of some of the key features of the Elise lineup as kind of like a more typical operator is in the cab type skid steer.
Sure. Sure. So it's our flagship lineup. Still, it's you know one of the more popular machines we sell, of course. One of the key features is you can listen to Wayne Grayson's podcast while you're running it.
Nice,
So,
thank you. Yes.
because it is quiet, but for safety there, somebody can yell at you that you're about to do X, Y, Z, and you should stop, and you'll hear them. But it's going to be your typical skid steer. It's got a lot of power, a lot of torque. It's as far as controls for us, the way this works is again, you've got your virtual garage, and you're going to put in your PIN code. It's going to know who you are, and your fleet operator or yourself, you're going to set standards for that person. So if I may only have 10% power because I'm new and I keep running into cars in the parking lot when I drive the skid steer. So when I put in
Okay.
my code, my fleet operator or in the virtual garage, I've only been given 10% power, right? Because
Right.
I need to stop doing that and learn. And you jump in and you've got 100% power because you've been doing it for 10 years. The other thing is when I jump in, I like the reverse H pattern, but you like the ISO pattern, right? Joysticks. We don't care. It's a computer. That's all options that gives an operator who's been running a certain type of skid steer for a long, long time a lot of comfortability to jump in. No learning curve. They like the reverse H pattern. Go for it. That's great. Do that. That's exactly what you're used to. It's got a lot of exposure to with the windows, so you can see exactly where you are, and there's going to be different lifting capacities depending on which machine you have. What is important again is a very few amount of moving parts to break down on you, and very little maintenance. That's going to keep the machine up and running when you need it. And the Elise line is still what we sell the most of
Okay.
because people are comfortable, jumping in still. And that's some of the cool stuff about the Elise. We definitely will have that line around for a long time, and it's going to remain a popular line because people are comfortable jumping in and out of that machine. I may have tailed off a little bit on your question, but I hope I gave some of the
Yeah.
features.
Yeah, no, 100%. What and I think just kind of like looking at you guys' website, and by the way, the website is first.green for anybody who wants to take a look at and look around at some of these models. What is the kind of interior of the cab like? What are some of the creature comfort features, display stuff like that? What
Sure.
can we expect looking inside this machine?
Sure. Air conditioning, heat, inside, as well as a moon roof that opens, as well as side windows, windshield wipers, comfortable controls, a lot of several different buttons to control the different attachments you might have. The hard mount display is relatively new to us because what we We thought we were doing the right thing by putting cell phones into the
Mm-hmm.
machine as the display itself, because
Okay.
um, you can actually jump out of the machine with our Firstgreen app and run the machine by your app. That's standard in the machines.
Okay.
But it's Bluetooth controlled, so it's got a little bit of a delay, and it's really more for uh, if you want to put it on a trailer and you're not comfortable being in the machine doing that, or doing it on some sort of slope, or maybe you're in a dangerous environment. You say, you know what, it's just too dangerous at this second. I'm jumping out. I'm going to control it by the app. I'm going to move it out. So the phone used to be the display as well, but we put a much larger hard mount display in. Those phones seem to also disappear in rental fleets, you know?
Hmm. Imagine that.
Um, yeah, so we've got a hard mount display that's nice and large, rear view cameras that help see out the back. And what is unique in a lot of electric equipment, we've got some LED lights that will absolutely burn a hole in your eye sockets if you look directly at them from front, side, and back. So those are some of the more unique things we have.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I mean, definitely an interesting kind of like, and I think it's interesting to hear you say. I mean, like you've got there's focus here on the electric kind of future, but there's not so much focus that it's kind of like you guys aren't flexible. Like I think the display is like a perfect example of like this could be a good idea. Like why do we need to have a display? And why wouldn't you want to be able to like take the display with you to kind of control the machine? It's a great idea, but you guys have kind of like figured out that the best option is going back to like a more traditional display while still having
Sure.
now is the app still, could you put it on your personal phone and still be able to control the machine from your phone?
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so you retain
And
that
and
functionality.
yeah, and that app will have your virtual garage in it as well. So if you have a fleet of 10 machines, you can pick which one you want to control, and do the operations from there. But absolutely, we're logical. Again, we want our machines up and running, doing really, really hard work as many hours out of the day as you need it. And if we made a mistake by maybe putting a cell phone in there initially that disappears and it's harder to run the machine without, we can accept that. It was very innovative. You can still do it, like you said, from your own phone. You just go to the App Store and download. But the hard mount display makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean that. I think there's several other like design features that are really interesting here on this machine too. I mean, like there's like a sloped kind of like sloped roof for added visibility over the top with that moon roof, and it looks like a really well designed machine in just about every way. And I think too, like the range, there's three models in the Elise lineup that range anywhere from it's got the 700, so 700, 900, and 1200. Those are named after kind of like the rated load capacity in kilograms, but it kind of equates from anywhere between like I think 1,200 pounds to 2,600 pounds. So really capable operating capacities on these machines, kind of covering the gamut of like the typical applications. And you said like this is still kind of like the flagship lineup, the most popular, and because by and large most operations are they're like okay, it's nice to have the remote control when we want it.
Mhm.
But like it sounds like the cabinless models are still like the mining application is really interesting, and then kind of having something for the more safety oriented applications as well. Tell us, well, I have a couple of wrap up questions for you. We've mentioned the Mini Z, which is the other product in your lineup. That's a compact electric track loader, so like a mini skid steer. Really interesting that it comes standard with the remote control, or you can do the stand on. Tell us a little bit more about the Mini Z, kind of how you guys are seeing that used in the market right now.
And I will address the fact that it has tracks. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because people say, well, why does that machine have tracks? It's because that battery, the smallest battery in that machine is so oversized, so that we can have the counterweight of the battery to lift that nearly 1,000 pounds from that little machine.
Okay.
And so that the extra tracks is not going to, it still gives us an 8 to 10 hour runtime on our smallest battery. which we find to be remarkable because, again, that's running the machine, right? It's a really cool machine, a lot of different ways. It fits through a standard 32-inch doorway without having to take any hinges off or anything like that. So it'll fit through a doorway. This way, if you need to move the couch around, you can put a grappler on the front, grab it while your wife or kids are on the couch and move it
Perfect.
inside the house. It's light enough still to go up a service elevator. So in some of the cities, we're doing a lot of internal demo. Um, in some of these places where real estate markets are very expensive to purchase, so people are purchasing older apartments or whatnot and doing demo. And it's small and tight enough to we've seen it used in sewer systems for cleanouts where people may not want to do a lot of work. Um, it's just it's a really adaptable machine. With the attachments for that machine, we don't we can just change out the coupler here very quickly at the factory. You can do it on your location too. It's 6 bolts. You have the option of the Turo coupler, Bobcat MT coupler, or the Euro coupler. All those give you options at unlimited amount of unique attachments that you may already have or that you can buy. So that machine, yeah, that's a great machine. It's quiet, it's easy, it's very simplistic, and again, it lifts almost 1,000 pounds, so it could do some really really great work. So it's a really cool machine.
Yeah, I mean, and it's, as I'm sure you guys are aware, I mean, like the market for those mini skid steers is rapidly accelerating and growing. And at that 1,000 pound, capacity, that is definitely the most popular capacity for sure. What is kind of like the business been like for that machine and kind of the demand for that machine? Are you guys seeing that same thing? It's kind of like the demand is growing, the market is growing for that machine.
It is growing because it's actually, it's got a price point that's gets very close to the diesel, which I'll address is we're about 10 to 15% higher than diesel,
Okay.
but you'll make that up within about a year of using the equipment, 9 months to 12 months, where your ROI will come back, and then everything you used to put into the to diesel equipment, whether it's maintenance or fuel, gets put back into your pocket after that. And so we see really good demand because it's easy to put on a trailer, and the attachment market is really really remarkable for these little machines. So many unique attachments out there to either rent or buy to use on a job site. So that's what makes us staying with hydraulic attachments important, because people have done some really great work throughout the years to put on some great attachments into the
Yeah,
market. So
absolutely. Well, Marcus, man, I will. We're bumping up against an hour here, but like this has been such an interesting conversation, and so I know it's been really illuminating for me in terms of kind of like just a great conversation with somebody who's just really focused on the electric market for machines and specifically like these skid steers and everything like that and the challenges that kind of come along with making this happen. But thank you so much for taking us through this lineup. Again, for anybody that's interested in checking out Firstgreen Industries, you can visit them online at first.green and take a look at their entire lineup. They've got brochures and specs and everything that you might want out of that. Marcus, I'll give you the last word. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything else that you'd like those listening to know about Firstgreen?
So we're still growing our dealership network. We'd love to sign on more good dealers who are not all electric, who want to put us up next to other equipment and give people an option. So our dealership network continues to grow, and I just want to say thank you, Wayne, because having an audience like yours is really important to us, and the time you've provided is really appreciate it. You've let me go on and on, probably too much, and I really appreciate your time and your questions.
Marcus, the pleasure is mine. Thank you so much for coming on and telling us a little bit about Firstgreen. Again, guys, that's first.green to check out the machines. And yeah, be on the lookout for more dealers coming in the future. Marcus, again, thank you so much.
Thanks. Have a great day.